Shanghai Hongqiao International Airport, China. The date is April 15th, 1999. A colossal McDonnell Douglas MD-11 operated by Korean Air Cargo stands ready on the tarmac. 3 crew members prepare to embark on a journey accompanied by 90 tons of cargo. This flight, designated as Cargo 6616, is set to make a short 90-minute voyage from Shanghai to Seoul. The MD-11, a successor to the DC-10, was first introduced in February 1992. By March 1996, it had been converted from a passenger aircraft to a freighter, reflecting its new role within the Korean air cargo fleet. This aircraft boasts 3 powerful Pratt Whitney turbofan engines and features a state-of-the-art glass cockpit, replacing the traditional analog dials. This innovation aimed to eliminate the need for a flight engineer, yet on certain flights, their expertise remains indispensable. As of this day, the aircraft has completed 4,463 flight cycles and logged over 28,347 hours. The crew is composed of 3 skilled individuals. In the left seat is 54-year-old Captain Hong Son-sil, a seasoned pilot with 12,888 flight hours under his belt, 4,856 of which are on the MD-11. To his right sits 35-year-old First Officer Park Bong-seok, less experienced, with a total of 1,826 flight hours, 1,352 of those on the MD-11. Accompanying them is 48-year-old flight engineer Park Bong-gi. Preparations for Flight 6616 proceed smoothly, with the aircraft's weight at 265,600 kilograms, well below the maximum allowable weight of 285 tons. Yet, lurking beneath the surface of this routine operation lies a subtle yet formidable challenge: the cultural authority gradient. Captain Hong's extensive experience dwarfs that of First Officer Park, whose career has just begun to take flight. In the Korean culture of the time, the authority of a senior was beyond question, creating an environment where the junior pilot might hesitate to challenge the captain's decisions, even when errors were evident. Compounding this complexity is the regional peculiarity of China's air traffic issue instructions in meters. For the Korean crew, accustomed to instruments calibrated in feet, this necessitates constant mental conversion. This linguistic and mathematical dance adds another layer of cognitive workload to an already demanding flight. In the intricate world of aviation, precision is paramount. A single miscalculation can transform a routine flight into a perilous journey. Imagine the scenario. 900 meters translates to 3,000 feet, whereas 1,500 meters equates to a range between 400 and 900 feet. To safeguard against such metric pitfalls, the airline mandated its pilots to watch a training video before every flight. On the morning of the flight, co-pilot Pak dutifully watched the video. However, Captain Han had last viewed it 2 months prior, a gap perilously insufficient for ingraining such a critical skill. The pilots completed their pre-flight checks, and at precisely 16 hours and 1 minute, they received clearance for takeoff from the control tower. With the roar of 3 powerful Pratt Whitney engines, the McDonnell Douglas MD-11 ascended from Shanghai's runway, setting its course towards Seoul. The weather was typical for the region, clouds hovering at 7 kilometers with a solid layer at 1,200 meters. It was a quintessentially gray day. Just over a minute into the flight, at an altitude of 1,000 feet or 300 meters, Captain Han disengaged the autopilot. He preferred the tactile control of manual flying, feeling the aircraft respond to his touch. The Shanghai Air Traffic Controller issued a clear directive: climb to 1,500 meters, equivalent to 400 feet. The pilots acknowledged, but tension was already simmering in the cockpit. Confusion over altitudes began to brew. Captain Han questioned, was it 1,000 feet or 900 meters? The flight engineer corrected him, 900 meters indeed. With surprise, Han repeated, 900 meters. The crew was erratically switching between measurement systems, violating standard operating procedures. They should have firmly set their sights on 1,500 meters or 400 feet. Instead, numbers began to blur in their minds. The aircraft soared confidently, surpassing 3,000 feet or 900 meters, aiming for the designated altitude. Yet, an illusion of danger crept into the cockpit. By 16 hours and 4 minutes, the aircraft had reached 1,300 meters, 400 feet. With less than 200 meters to climb, a phenomenon known to aviation psychologists as a loss of situational awareness unfolded. Co-pilot Park Bong-sok glanced at the instruments and panicked. The altimeter displayed 4,500 on the foot scale. A fatal error occurred in his mind. He forgot the target was 1,500 meters, mistakenly believing it was 1,500 feet. Park shouted, insisting they needed to be at 1,500 feet. In the throes of stress, Captain Hon failed to verify this information. He neglected to check the instruments, relying instead on the panicked outburst of his co-pilot. In his mental landscape, they were 3,000 feet above the intended flight level. The aircraft was on the brink of a catastrophic encounter with other planes in the sky. The captain's reaction was immediate and extreme. With a sudden push of the control column, the aircraft lurched downward. In a span of mere 10 seconds, the crew relentlessly adjusted the stabilizer for a dive. This was not just a maneuver, it was the transformation of a 200-ton behemoth into a plummeting projectile. The MD-11 became a missile in descent. The physics of this process was unforgiving. The rate of descent soon reached an astonishing 34,000 feet per minute, equivalent to 172 meters per second. To put this into perspective, it was 10 times the speed of an emergency descent. Within the cockpit, the colossal forces of aerodynamic pressure and gravitational pull caused the instrument panels to vibrate violently at a frequency of 10 Hz. This ominous hum, captured by the cockpit voice recorder, was the death knell of the aircraft's structure. The ground proximity warning system screamed its alerts, a cacophony of warnings against the looming Earth below. At 2,500 feet, the last audible warning of altitude blared. But by then, it was too late. The pilots realized their error too late. The captain attempted to pull the control column back, but at such velocity, with the nose angled steeply between 20 and 40 degrees downward, the inertia of the massive machine rendered it uncontrollable. Subsequent simulator tests would reveal that even if the captain had initiated recovery from the dive at 1,500 feet, under such conditions, there would have been no chance of averting disaster. At precisely 16 hours and 4 minutes, Flight 36316 met its tragic end. The impact was of monumental force. The aircraft collided with the ground in an industrial zone in Sichuan, 11.5 kilometers from the runway's end. The seismic shock was registered by the Shanghai Seismic Bureau, equivalent to an earthquake of magnitude 1.6 on the Richter scale. The crash site bore a massive crater, with debris scattered in a 2-kilometer radius. The aftermath on the ground was devastating. 32 shops were obliterated. 116 residential apartments in nearby buildings suffered severe damage, and a 50-meter section of concrete wall was obliterated by the shockwave. All 3 crew members perished in the disaster, and the tragedy claimed the lives of 5 individuals on the ground, injuring 42 others with varying degrees of severity. The investigation team, comprising experts from China, the United States, and Korea, faced significant challenges. The flight data recorder had been destroyed, its tapes reduced to confetti. Despite 6 months of rigorous laboratory work, the NTSB could not recover a single bit of data. All insights had to be gleaned from the solid-state cockpit voice recorder. In the end, the story of Flight 36316 stands as a haunting reminder of the delicate balance between human decision-making and the relentless forces of nature. A split-second decision, a cascade of events, and a tragedy that echoes in the annals of aviation history. The remnants of engines 1 and 3 lay embedded in the earth at the impact site, while the tail engine had been hurled 230 meters away. A meticulous examination unearthed a stark truth. The aircraft was in impeccable condition prior to the crash. The engines hummed in harmony, the control systems were intact. Advanced DNA technology confirmed the identities of the crew, ruling out any presence of outsiders in the cockpit and dispelling any hint of explosives. Yet the question loomed large. Why did this happen? The investigation unearthed 3 systemic factors behind the devastating crash of Flight 6316. The first was a catastrophic error by the co-pilot. Under duress, his inability to operate within the metric system conjured a phantom threat. He mistook 1,500 meters for 1,500 feet, unraveling the situational awareness of the entire crew. The second factor lay in the captain's disastrous response. Despite his vast experience, Captain Honsel ignored the cardinal rule of aviation: aviate, navigate, communicate. He failed to verify the data, executing a drastic maneuver that spiraled the situation from challenging to catastrophic. His 10-second hold on the dive stabilizer betrayed a complete loss of spatial orientation. Finally, the third factor was a systemic failure in training. Korean Air's cursory approach to pilot preparation, relying on video tutorials, fell short of equipping minds for the instantaneous recalculations required in critical moments. This marked a profound collapse of the crew resource management (CRM) concept. The safety net meant to shield the aircraft disintegrated when the captain ceased to filter the co-pilot's errors and instead enacted them. The difference between meters and feet transcended a mere mathematical discrepancy. It became the thin line between life and death. In the wake of the Shanghai tragedy, Korean Air underwent a radical overhaul of pilot training standards. Cockpit interaction procedures were tightened, transforming cross-checking into a mandatory practice rather than a mere suggestion. Pilots now undergo rigorous simulator sessions, replicating scenarios of metric disorientation. Today, China remains one of the few countries, alongside North Korea, Mongolia, and parts of the former Soviet Union, where flight altitudes are communicated in meters rather than feet. This practice operates within a modified flight level table, distinct from the global norm. As the aviation world continues to grapple with the intricacies of metric and imperial systems, the lessons from Flight 6316 resonate profoundly. They underscore the imperative of precision, the criticality of communication, and the unyielding need for vigilance in the skies. This tragedy not only reshaped an airline, but also fortified the global aviation community against the perils of miscommunication and miscalculation. Across the globe, the standard separation between flight levels stands at 1,000 feet, roughly translating to between 300 and 500 meters. Yet, in China, the norm diverges significantly, with a standard interval of 300 meters. For instance, a flight level typically marked as 330, indicating 33,000 feet, translates in China to an altitude of 10,100 meters. Such distinctions introduce unique challenges for crews on international flights, necessitating the use of conversion tables. Fortunately, of the metric button on the control panel, pilots can convert the displayed altitude from feet to meters on the primary flight display. But why not adopt feet universally, you might wonder? The answer lies in sovereignty and safety. Transitioning China's vast aviation infrastructure to imperial units would entail colossal expenses for retraining personnel and updating software systems, an undertaking deemed impractical by many. Furthermore, the new edition of China's civil aviation law, set to take effect in July 2026, continues to adhere to national standards while aiming for deeper integration into international logistics. This balance between maintaining national identity and engaging with global systems presents a fascinating dynamic in the ever-evolving world of aviation.